I don't think we talk about how lonely self improvement is. I mean, yeah, growth is beautiful, journaling is beautiful, going to therapy is great, setting boundaries is intentional. Healing is beautiful, but what no one tells you is the growth part in all of these things is extremely isolating. You wake up one day and you realize that you've been working so hard on yourself, whether it is physically, mentally, emotionally, on your career, on your social life, that it somehow has made you isolated and you can no longer relate to anyone around you. Or worse, the people around you, the people you love, start to resent you for it. I think it starts small. Maybe you want to be emotionally regulated, or some of us like to take care of our body, and some of us really end up saying yes to every single thing that we come across. So you start reading more, you start journaling more, you do morning pages, 5-minute gratitude journals, journal prompts, shadow work that you find on Pinterest. You unfollow people who drain you or who no longer serve you any sort of purpose. You probably also start sleeping early, listening to self development podcasts that you think are probably going to improve the quality of your life and your mind. And slowly, you do realize that it is making some sort of change in your life. You're becoming calmer, you're becoming more intentional, you're becoming more self aware. But somewhere you realize things are shifting a lot. Your conversations with friends change. The tone in how they talk to you or how your family members talk to you change. The things you may be finding funny earlier or interesting earlier, you don't find it amusing anymore. And people start noticing that about you. And these same people do not know what to do with the new you. Self improvement, I think, has this soft effect where we change internally so much that we outgrow the version of ourselves that we used to be. And that previous version of ourselves was probably more agreeable, more friendly, the person who did not say no to anything, always going around saying yes to every single plan, every single opinion, the one who would probably stay up late at night. And since a lot of us are not that anymore, things do get awkward. And this leads to spending more time alone, not because we want to be isolated, but because the wrong energy starts draining us so much more. And in that space of who you used to be and the new version of you that's becoming, this gap and this space becomes extremely lonely. You're not really who you were, and you're not really who you ideally want to be either. You've probably outgrown old habits, but you've not found the ideal new habits and your new people either. You can't go back, but moving forward feels like walking alone in a space full of fog. And sometimes I've found myself wondering so much that I feel like I'm the only person who's been on this journey of improving my life. And when I say improving, I do not mean that I'm following all the 10 steps that might be out there on the internet. I'm not doing the 75 hard, or for some people 75 soft. What I mean is I find things that are well suited to my personality personally. I would probably go around consuming and taking in all the positives from these new environments, even if it is something that I find online. For example, I love reading, and I do try really hard to make time for reading and always reading more and more books. I feel that one's lifespan is too short for the amount of books that we have to read, and I do relate to that so much. And reading does give my soul a lot of happiness, so I do make sure that is always on one of the top things in my life that I would like to work on. That is my me time that brings me a lot of joy. Another thing that I personally like to prioritize is family time. I do have my husband and my dog and an almost 1-year-old baby now. It does personally make me so happy to give them time, and I would want to get done with a lot of things that I love doing, whether it is work or my me time, and it is my top priority to give time to my family and go on my dog Louise walks every single day. I mean, I cannot miss it because I love it so much. Followed by writing. If you don't know, I write on my Substack called Milk and Cookies, and it is a part of me that I feel makes me complete. It is my life that I love, and it is one thing that I feel that I have to myself. And now I've started on this YouTube journey. So these are few things that I always feel that I want to improve on. I want to make it better for myself. I want to be a better writer. I want to make better videos for you guys and spend a lot of time with my family, pursue my hobbies basically alongside work. Now, I have found that there are a lot of people like me who do tailored fit activities to improve their own life. Sometimes, and a lot of times, unfortunately, the people around you might not agree with you. These might be friends who might be envious of seeing you being so busy with your life. Even if your busy means just sitting and giving yourself nourishing me time, that is fine. But a lot of people do not like that. And in order for us to feel more, we do end up feeling misunderstood most of the times. But I think the answer here is that growth really doesn't make us feel better. It makes us see clearer. And once you start seeing things around you that are so clear, it is really hard to unsee the things that are no longer aligned with your life and with your values. So I've been struggling a lot since the past few years and figuring out what to do with this loneliness. I feel like I'm a very different type of personality compared to the people around me, and I have learned a few things. It sounds counterintuitive, but I think you just sit with it. You just learn to sit with your loneliness that you go through specifically during self-development. And I don't mean this in an isolating way, I mean this in a self-respecting way. You do this for yourself and you're going to tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to let the old version of myself and my old life come back just because this is being isolating. Yes, it is hard. It is super hard. It's lonely, but I'm going to be respectful for all the hard work that I've done in the past few days, weeks, months, or years. And I'm going to be patient and make it easier for me to reach where I wanted to reach. And during this period where you're being so self-respecting, you find micro joys. You find things, daily, little, mundane things that make this transitional self of yours happy. You hold space for the person you're becoming. You journal if you have no one in your life to talk to. You journal like this journal is your best friend. And slowly you start building the life that matches your insides. Eventually, I think you will find new people that will match the new you. If it works out, old people who will meet you where you are. And I do not mean this in an egoistic way. A lot of times, the pace of your growth and someone else's growth might look really different, but your interests might be similar. So give it time. You don't need to have resentment towards anyone. But my point is that either way, you become less afraid of the in-between that you are in currently. While I'm saying this, I do feel that there is a big myth around becoming the better version of yourself that we're seeing everywhere on the internet. I think self-improvement gives you the illusion that things are going to feel lighter for you and your life is for some reason going to get easier. But I think what eventually ends up happening on the other side and during the process is that you start feeling everything even more and it starts feeling heavy sometimes. If you are working on yourself emotionally, you become hyper aware of what you're doing, your patterns, your emotions, your anxiety, and your triggers. And vice versa, you become more sensitive towards other people's feelings, emotions, their coping mechanisms, and you start sort of tiptoeing around their feelings. And while we manage all this, we realize that all these other people somehow feel mistaken about our boundaries with rejection. There's no need to blame these people. I think it's only because it feels unfamiliar and not because they do not understand it. Yes, they do not probably understand it because they're probably not in the same space as you are in. It could be painful to outgrow people that once did feel like home to you. I feel that shedding an old identity is so painful because you sort of go through a grieving process of not being able to recognize with this person who was once there for someone else unconditionally, but now because you've worked on yourself, you'd probably realize that, oh, it was just a pattern that I was being there for this extremely dependent person, and you were the one tolerating all the jokes, the drama, the one-sidedness of several relationships and not saying no to anything. And people really like that version of you. I feel that people always think like that because you were the person who said yes to everything and were somehow useful to all of these people, but you're not useful to them anymore, but you're useful to yourself now. There's this concept that I was reading about before recording this video, that there's this concept in emotional development that I was reading about before filming this video. It's called differentiation. It essentially means the ability to have your own identity without diffusing your identity with others' identities. It basically means how well you can stay grounded to your own identity, even though the people around you do not understand, agree, or support the direction that you are going in. So when you start to not do all of these things that other people want you to do, it feels destabilizing a lot of times. Like you're being rude or distant or rejective, but you're just being solid now. This solidity feels very threatening to the people around us. And this is where the lonely part comes in, because you have also probably come to a point where you've stopped over explaining yourself. I used to find my younger version to over explain myself a lot to people. Because I've gotten some sort of inner peace, I do not go around over explaining myself to people. Even if I'm misunderstood, it does come with its side effect where I do have built up emotions about a particular instance and I probably have to journal it out for a few days. While I do not over explain myself, I also do not want to give people around me one-liners and sound arrogant or rude. Or I don't even want to sound like I'm too healed right now and I'm too cool and I do understand myself better and I'm on this different journey that you probably aren't. I do not by any means mean to hurt anyone's ego at the same time, and that is where it gets lonely, because you probably have to make peace with the fact that you're going to be misunderstood, and either ways people around you are going to get hurt, and you're the only one who's going to be working on yourself and how you're coping with this situation on your own, even though it's with a therapist or journaling or talking to a loved one or a trusted friend or your partner. But you're the one who's putting in all the work to manage your emotions in a healthy way, and the other person probably isn't. And this definitely means that there will be lesser people who are going to get you. But the bright side is that the ones who will, they are the real ones. And in the meantime, I found myself leaning into my rituals. I do not have a lot of uptight rituals by any means. I just have my rituals or my guilty pleasures. I love having my coffee first thing in the morning. And as a guilty pleasure, I also end up having by late evening, because that's a way I like to reward myself. I do not drink a lot. I do not have a lot of indulgences in that way, but I have my coffee and I reward myself with an extra cup or two. I found companionship through fiction books, through stories, through the characters that I meet in these books. And a newfound hobby that I have started loving is just a very random one. You probably would not find it anywhere else. And since I read, I also read articles and essays online. So I would go on Substack, the Paris Review, the New Yorker, and I would print out my favorite essays, and I would print out the essays that I would want to read, because you just end up saving these articles and never get around reading them. I go ahead and I print it out because I also love physical paper. I'm not a very digital person, if it makes sense. And what I do is I print it out and I read it physically, and I also sometimes sit with my favorite stationery and I make my personal notes, aka annotate these articles and write my analysis or my thoughts, and that is my me time these days since I think a month, and I've been loving doing this. So my point here is that you keep showing up for yourself. I highly recommend coming up with your own personal rituals, whatever suits your personality. I want you to go ahead and clap for yourself, even though no one is there to clap for you. I read somewhere that if you high five yourself first thing in the morning in the mirror, so you just go ahead, stand in the front of the mirror, and you give yourself a high five, it scientifically boosts your self-confidence and self-esteem, which is something that I want to try as well. And I think it would work out for this transitionary phase of self-improvement, because eventually it's more about coming home to yourself and it beats the point of focusing on what we don't have if we are on this beautiful journey of finding ourselves. I see self-improvement as a journey where I'm finding myself better. So if you're in this season where healing feels isolating and you cannot go back to who you were, I just want to say that you're not doing it wrong, because this loneliness is probably not going to be there forever, but the new self that you're finding, that person is here to stay. That is going to be such a feel-good factor for you. This new person is worth staying for and worth working for. Go back to your rituals, your hobbies. They're gonna save you. And that's it for today's video. I hope this was useful for you. If you have any questions, please drop it in the comments below. I try to answer all of them. And I can't wait to see you again in my next video next week.